Hey, folks, welcome to the Lightning Strike Podcast, where electrifying conversations meet brilliant minds with your host, Mohammed, Faheem, and DeLuc. Together, we're driving into the pulse-pounding stories, game-changing innovations, and thought-provoking ideas that illuminates our world. Join us as we ride the storm of inspiration. Fasten your seatbelts and brace for impact. The Lightning Strike Podcast is about to strike. Subscribe now and let the thunderous conversations begin.
Good morning, folks. Mohammed Faheem here with the Lightning Strike radio show. And with me joining today is my co-host, DeLuc.
Howdy,
And
folks.
we will be talking today with some families of people who have been incarcerated in the Newton facility in Iowa, and also some residents of Iowa City, to talk about what is happening in our present prison system. And what can we do to make a change in society? Joining me today is Michelle Alfano, who has been advocating very strongly on the radio with us in the past few weeks for Eric Strang. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning to you, Mohammed. Thank you.
And Michelle, if you could please introduce the guest that you have got on this call today.
Great. First of all, I have Dave and Dawn Bowenmyer. They are here to speak on the situation at Newton Correctional. I also have Sue Smeldon, who has a son inside Newton Correctional, and Dawn Peters is here to speak about the people of Newton, Iowa, and how they feel concerning the prison in their town.
Okay, sounds good. So what we will do is I'll go ahead and let's start off with you, Susan. And I've got you focused on, so you are on the screen. Susan, what happened? What happened with your son? How long has he been in the correctional facility? And what is the impact that that has had on you and your family?
Boy, we don't have enough time for all of that. Newton has been, my son was put in 3 different prisons in the process. It's a standard process that they do here in Iowa. And he's always had contact with his children. What he had done was he had found a SD disk drive and put it in his phone. And he thought he was getting extra music. He works as a mechanic, but it wasn't that. And there were things, it was very complicated. So he was he was custodial parent of his children, good dad. I have 5 kids and he was one of the best that I've got, which I promise he's good. Anyways, his sons, when he hit Newton, one person decided without talking to my grandsons that they could no longer talk to their father. And it was devastating. One of them is autistic. And they went ahead and at the Christmas party, this is the one that brought me to tears. The Prison Angel Christmas party, all the other kids are getting their pictures taken and they're writing cards to their daddies from the prison party. My grandson sat there and they said, our dad is in Newton. You don't understand. Our dad will be in trouble and they will burn our pictures if we send pictures to our father. There's no rhyme or reason. They have one person that's made this determination. I started trying to understand what's going on in Newton because I've never been around, prisons and things. Newton was actually founded in 1997. It was built for 750 beds. They currently are housing approximately 1,300 people in there. They make their own commissary. They are the only one in the nation. They made $5 million last year just from their commissary alone. They have other states coming in to see what they're doing. Well, if they have a medication that is prescribed, even though it's a prescription dose, you have to buy it through their commissary. So your stomach pills, your Tylenol, your melatonin, anything that would help you and that has been ordered. Just a small travel size bottle of Tylenol is $5. Their food in there it's not fit. They're feeding them pink slime. On the boxes in the kitchen, it says unfit for human consumption. The visits, they started with the visits. They're taking one thing away at a time so people don't notice. It started with the bathroom. There's a lot of us that are elderly, and they have a very decent bathroom in the visiting room. And they said, nope, you can't use it anymore. We have to take a guard, which takes away from their guard time, makes them walk us back, which is way over 1,000 feet, back into the main building to use a unisex bathroom, go back through the scanner, be patted down again, and then go back in. So it takes away probably a good 20 minutes of your visit. The other thing is, I had talked to a reliable source. They said Newton was once upon a time a good facility, but they had a lot of changes. And in these changes, in fact, Michelle and I were at the DOC November meeting, and Michelle was in tears because they were up there. You can't say they lie. They fabricated. And they started saying how they have 30 programs in their prisons. Well, at Newton, they don't. At Newton, Newton is divided into two facilities. One's on the top of the hill, one's on the bottom of the hill. The bottom of the hill, they have certain guys that can work in what they call IPI, and they can build houses. At the top of the hill, there is nothing. And in fact, my son decided he was going to get a Pell Grant, which he qualified for, to go to school. Every one of those classes were LGBTQ classes. There was nothing for general ed. And I have my master's in nursing. I never had seen these classes. It wasn't mandatory to help me get a better education. The other thing they're doing recently is they lock down all these guys at 3:00. They lock them down. It started Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and now it's graduated to Monday. The interesting thing is, since all these changes have come into place, our governor appointed Beth Skinner as the prison director. The prison director is married to Katrina, who is the program director of the programs. And so I see a whole bunch of nepotism going on there. Where's the money going? Where is it benefiting these guys in Newton? There are no classes. There is nothing to benefit them. I have witnessed.
Susan, let me ask you a quick question here before you said that there was one person making the decision that really affected your son. Who is that person, and what's his association with prison?
It's a female. She's the victim advocate. Well, my grandsons are not victims. They're not related to the victim. They're not around the victim. We don't know where the alleged victim is. And her name is Roche. I can remember that much. I have it written down somewhere else. I have called her. I have tried to explain. She turns it back on me and says maybe I'm the one, that he's not got a safe place to go to, that I'm the one. I've had a nursing license for 40 years in multiple states. I've never had a complaint on my license. I have a clean history. I'm very caring and nurturing. I am concerned about the nurses that are in there treating these prisoners. I had heard it before, and it was hearsay, but then it directly affected my son, where there are certain meds that come up missing. And the Board of Nursing in the state of Iowa cannot get in there because they're like their own little land of Oz. Unless you have a first name and a last name, then they can go individually. But I don't know who is over the nurses in Iowa's Newton, but there's a lot of problems. And then they sit back, and this has been documented. A lot of people have heard, if you are a decent CO, they make fun of you. They talk about you. They say that they can't do appointments when it's documented. There is a list of documentation of times where their office is empty. There's nobody in there. There's just so much stuff going on there. I just don't even know. It's not a rehabilitation facility. They're not rehabbing anybody. The other thing is the recidivism numbers are going down because they are taking the worst of the worst and they're releasing them. There was one incident and they had what we call PRIAs. That means they have had a sexual violation against other inmates. There was one that sat there and told everybody if his victim thought he had done something bad, wait until he gets out. He's going to make sure it's something bad. He had 23 PRIAs against him that were current. They released him. He went and the group of guys, there was a group of inmates. In fact, I can't even call them inmates anymore. I call them hostages. I call them captive labor. They called the Attorney General's office and they told the Attorney General, we just witnessed this. They're letting him out. You better do something. Well, they said, the Attorney General said, will you testify to that? Knowing the retaliation they would get, these guys said, yes, we will. We will, because that's not right.
Susan,
And
let me ask you this, and just
Yeah.
to clarify the situation here, are you suggesting that, or maybe it's your impression, that the prison wants to get rid of all the bad actors and keep all the guys, the better guys, online because they can make money off of their, different contracts and things of that nature, and they don't have as much aggravation dealing with the like the bad actors, for example? Is that kind of where you're going with this situation?
Yes, very, very well said. And if they get the worst of the worst out, the PRIA's number go down. They can show on paper their recidivism numbers go down, because if they are on parole, it doesn't count as a new count. So it shows they let these guys out. Their numbers are going down as repeat offenders. And it's win-win for Newton.
Okay. Do you have any, if you can share with us, something in the statistics and documentation on what you're showing, please send that to us, because I'd love to put that
I
in the
will. I
Okay,
will. In fact,
Susan, thank you so much for sharing, your anguish with us. I will not, call it your story, because it's not a story. This is things that are happening. Stories are made up things.
yeah,
And
and
what you
this is the
folks are
other
going through,
prisoners.
yeah, it is, it's a day in and day out. You're living with this thing. Let's come to Dave. And Dave, if you could please introduce yourself, and both of you guys, if you don't mind. Let's talk about what is
Yes.
happening with you, and let me bring you over here now, so that you are both on. If you could please introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Dave Bowenmyer, and I'm a pastor at Stonebrook Community Church in Ames, Iowa. And this is my wife, Dawn.
Hey,
And
Don.
I've been involved in pastoral counseling for probably about 40 years. And we met, someone started coming to our church. David Morrow is his name, in 2001. And we were doing some counseling with him, trying to work through a really deep mother wound that he had. And in the midst of that, while we were out of town, he committed a sexual offense and has been in prison now for 21 years. He has completed his time for that offense. And we were hoping, as he was transferred from Anamasa to Newton to take the sexual abusers treatment course, we were hoping that he was going to be released on parole, but then found out that he has been referred by what's called the MDT, multidisciplinary team, to the Attorney General for possible civil commitment. Now, civil commitment is where the state can put you in a mental institution supposedly to help give you some treatment that is not possible. They're not possible to give that to you during the Department of Correction and their programs. And so, but the problem is that the Attorney General will not look at these cases until 90 days before release day, which for David is 2036, 13 years from now. And so he is going to be in prison at the way things are presently set up for 13 years before he is even evaluated by the Attorney General to see if he's possibly going to be referred for civil commitment. If that happens, there'll be a trial. I'm almost positive he would be exonerated then. We were shocked that he was even referred to the Attorney General. And so that's...
Dave, let me ask you a quick question here. I know that's like very reminiscent on Eric's case that we've been following for the past 5 or 6 weeks. Do you have any idea how many people in Newton fall under the same category as what you're describing?
Well, Ken Pierce was, we went to the Iowa the last board meeting, and Ken Pierce, who is, I can't remember what it is, he's in charge of something there.
With the MDT.
With the MDT, I think. And he said there's about 50 a year that they refer to the Attorney General. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know how long that is, but if it's, 50 people every year, and let's say every person has 4 years left on their sentence, that might be low. That would be, that adds up to a lot of people and a lot of taxpayer money. Just these guys just waiting to find out if they're even going to be prosecuted for civil commitment.
Well, let me go ahead and let me go ahead and bring in Don over here. So Don, as a citizen of Iowa, okay. If you look at the screen, if you're seeing the screen, I've got Don on the screen over here now. So Don, as a citizen of Iowa now, what is your thoughts on this? Do you think that you should be approaching the Iowa legislature with a with a request for changes? What do you think? What would be your role?
So just a little background history on me. I've lived in Newton for 16 years. My husband has lived here all his life. He's 64. So I am a sexual abuse survivor. And so one might think that, well, why is she, so active in this situation with Newton? Because, she's a sexual abuse survivor. Most of them over there are sexual abusers. But from what I've seen and heard, and I know I have a lot of people that I know that work in the prison system. Mm-hmm. I know that things are not right over there, and my taxpayer dollars are going to, put these guys through the type of punishment that they're putting them through instead of rehabilitating them to get them released. I just find it horrendous. And, I have contacted the legislatures. I have contacted the Attorney General. I have contacted our governor, and you get nowhere with any of them. Absolutely nowhere. Nobody wants to listen. Nobody wants to talk to you. Beth Skinner, I sent her a big long email, and she actually responded to me and said that she was going to have her secretary set up a meeting between her and I, and that never happened. It's just the whole thing over there is not right. And I don't know what it's going to take to expose them. I've contacted news channels. Nobody wants to touch this this beast, as I call it.
Well,
You know
Because
what?
for-
Let me just add something real quick here. I just did a back of the napkin calculation. If you figure your average inmate's going to cost between $50,000 to $60,000 a year to maintain them, and from what David said, as far as there's 50 people a year and they have an average of 4 years, you're looking at $12 million a year more that's coming out of the taxpayer's pocket to not address the elephant in the room, which is we should be rehabbing these people, rehabilitating these people, and letting them, go on with their lives. So it's a money market scheme to a big extent, and something like Beth Skinner may relate to more than anything else. If the public knows the amount of money it's costing the general public, maybe that kind of pressure could be a way to get in that door.
Well, what we are going to be doing with today's meeting, folks, is we're making excuse me, we're going to make sure that a lot of people get to see this, get to hear about this, get to know about this, and if more and more people can question our legislature as to what is happening. I think a lot of it has to do with changing some of the laws, Dave and Don, and and Susan, Michelle. Uh, the officials that are there, obviously, they are following the law as it is written to a very large extent. And then obviously some of them are going beyond it because no one is holding them accountable. So that's what we are trying to do with today's meeting, folks. And actually, like I said before, these are not stories. These are everyday facts of life that you guys are going through. And more people need to know about this. Folks, again, this is Mohammed Faheem with Ken DeLuc from the Lightning Strike radio show on WCPT 820 AM in Chicago, Chicago's progressive talk radio station. This is a podcast that we are doing on as an add-on to our regular radio shows on Sunday mornings. Please feel free to chime in, send us your information, send us your ideas. You can always go visit our website, which is www.tlschicago.com for the lightning strike. We'll be putting this up as part of this video also, and you will see how you can reach to us with your suggestions, with your comments. Let's bring in Michelle Alfano. Michelle, thank you again for joining us, and let us see what we have to hear from you about what's happening in this prison in Iowa, and why are you here on this session today?
Yes, thank you, Mohammed. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this MDT process. Nobody knows about it because they don't answer to anyone. They're marching to their own tune, and that's a problem. And I'm going to explain a little bit civil commitment, which people also don't understand. It's a well-kept secret. There are only 20 states in the union that have civil commitment. And I am certainly an advocate for all of the states abolishing civil commitment. Civil commitment is where people get involuntarily committed into what appears to be a treatment center, but for people who understand, they are called shadow prisons because they operate like prisons and people are not receiving treatment. They get involuntary committed and then never let out. So this is what people like Dave and Eric are facing. When this multidisciplinary team came in and said, well, I'll speak about Eric's case. So Eric had served 16 years. And one thing I want to be careful with language. So when we use words like abuser, we have to be careful with some of the language. Eric was 19 when he made mistakes, and I'm going to call them mistakes because teenagers make mistakes. And he is certainly not an abuser in any kind of way. And I think the DOC system implements language that is very prejudicial, intended to scare people and scare communities and make communities think, let us take care of it. We'll keep your community safe from predators and from abusers. But in fact, in Eric's case, we're looking at a kid who was 19 years old and made a mistake. So there is no reason to be afraid of him. There is no issue of reoffending. He's been incarcerated 16 years and never had a sexual disciplinary report, ever. So,
let me just share a story here for people who are listening to this for the first time. I mean, I was in college and I went to frat parties and I urinated in public in the backyard because, well, that's what you do when you're 19 years old. And this is the whole start of what Eric's problem was. And he is suffered decades. I mean, it irks the hell out of me because I'm sure there's nobody on this call that hasn't been in that same situation. Okay. Well, maybe one
nobody
person.
in the state of Iowa. It's a state of farmers, and it's a rural state. They produce corn. So yes, we're applying very harsh standards to this young teenager who is now about to turn 37 years old. He spent almost 2 decades in prison. So let me explain this MDT process. So Eric has served his time. This is not even about his case, Ken. He has served his time. Mm-hmm. He's been eligible for parole since 2017. He's done their treatment program. He's paid the restitution. He's spent his time studying, getting degrees, volunteering. So this MDT team, who answers to no one, they are employees, they're basically under the guise of DOC, they are referring 80% of the cases that are ready for release, people who are ready to go back into community, they're being referred to the Attorney General for, quote, further review. And what are we reviewing? They're reviewing, are these people, do we have enough on these people to civilly commit them?
All right, Michelle, let me ask you a real quick question here. I mean, obviously there's a motivation behind these people that are putting Eric and Dave and other people in jeopardy for their futures. Now it's been hinted that there's a prison industrial complex. There's a money trail, and if you follow the money, do we have any way of finding out who's benefiting by this thing happening? By keeping people like that involved. I mean, is there a way we can explore this further on that end?
So when the MDT decides that they are going to review you, they have 30 days in which to receive notification about your case and review you. They hadn't been following that. It comes out of the Iowa Code 229A. Actually, 229A.3 number 6, which requires them to review in 30 days. They've been violating that for years. So I did call their attention to that. But when they do review you, the person being reviewed is not allowed to have an attorney, not allowed to speak for himself, not allowed to be present. He cannot submit his plans for release. Everything is confidential. No one in the public is allowed. And anything that is that secret, I just find subject to scrutiny. Why can't you have a representative? In Eric's case, the decision causes him now to be in prison 7 more years. And I think that he should be allowed to have an attorney present for something as grave as that. So this goes to Ken's question. By holding people in prison more years, in Eric's case, it's 7 more years. In David's case, it's 13 more years. we are clearly seeing that they are keeping the quote unquote hotel full to capacity. Newton is hundreds of people over capacity. And per the DOC's website, they say themselves that they are 22% over capacity. We're seeing at Newton that cells built for 2 men are housing 3 men. So the guy in that third top bunk, he cannot even sit up in his bunk because his head hits the ceiling. It's extremely overcrowded. And this is not safe even for the staff. Let's say that you aren't a prison advocate like we are. Even for staff, it's not safe to be in those conditions. I also am sure it's a fire code violation. I'm working on that. But anyway, so when the MDT refers your case to the Attorney General, you then wait for years. The Attorney General indicates to people that they will review your case 90 days to discharge. And the thing is, they only are actually committing about 1% of these cases to civil commitment. So if you're recommending 80% of cases, but 79 of them are being released years later, it appears that what they're doing is keeping the hotel full. And what we are asking the Attorney General is, we're saying, these people, most of them do not meet the criteria for being reviewed and referred to your office. So we are asking for them to set up a new type of MDT and re-review all of these cases that have been sent that are waiting. They need to be reviewed and cleared if they don't meet the criteria. For example, one criteria is that the person has to have a mental abnormality such that they would be a danger to society. Well, in Eric's case, there's no evidence of that. He's never been on medication, never seen a psychiatrist or psychologist, never been diagnosed with anything. If anything, what we're seeing now is that because Eric has spoken out and I have spoken as his advocate, he is suffering extreme torture. I call it torture, but severe punishment. And yes, now we're seeing all sorts of damages to him. For example, his vision. He's just spent recently 28 days in solitary confinement under these horrifically industrial glaring fluorescent lights. And now, of course, he's having severe headaches and problems with blurry vision. So
Michelle,
healthy people and rendering them disabled.
Michelle, Dave, or Susan, real quick question for you all. Are there any people in the political environment, representatives or, aldermen or whatever, that have the same passion that you guys have, that we could reach out to and maybe help support making, like Michelle mentioned, a legislative change to readdress these issues that are obviously unfair to the inmates? Is there anyone that you can think of that we should bring on and talk to?
I would say, as Dawn from Newton said, we have all been writing and calling literally hundreds of letters to the governor's office, to the 2 senators, to the state senator, to the representatives, and to definitely, we've all advocated very hard to the Board of Corrections. People are scared. They don't want to dirty their hands with this issue. If I can make a historical parallel, in 1940, there was a group that was hated and they had to wear stars and be ostracized by everyone. This is a parallel. If you have been charged and convicted with a sex offense, you are absolutely demonized in society, ostracized. Your star, so to speak, is going to be an ankle bracelet. You will not be allowed to live in people's communities. No one will give you employment. It's a real witch hunt. So the politicians, it appears to us, are very scared for their own careers. They're
No,
very
I get that,
reluctant
but
to
are
speak
there
up.
any politicians more than others that are more l- compassionate towards your cause that you can send out, or no? And
We're working
a
on
better
it.
question for Dawn, because you're in Newton, is there somebody that you feel that we should reach out to from a political standpoint to help, promote this issue? Is there anyone that you can think of living there?
I have given Michelle all of the names of everyone that I know, and so far none of them have been overly interested.
Hey, Dave, I would want to bring you on back now. And as the pastor over there, do you have a message for the public in Iowa at large? If you were doing a Sunday morning sermon, what would you tell them about this issue?
I think I would say that there is such a thing as forgiveness, and that as a culture, we need to be a culture that is open to forgiveness, where there is genuine repentance and a change of heart. And we need to have a way in our prison systems to be able to really evaluate that repentance. And in our friend David's case, because he had some of the factors from the very first day that he went in, he was almost certain, as looking back, it's almost certain he would be referred to the Attorney General because of some of the, just some factors from the very beginning. And yet he has worked very hard to reform, to just change, to be a different man. His faith has grown immensely. And so I think we need to be a culture that understands that. Secondly, I think we need to really get rid of this view that sexual offenders cannot be rehabilitated, that they're somehow incurable, or they take just a tremendous amount of time and effort for them to change. And research shows that's just not true, that actually sexual reoffense rate is lower for those who are committed sexual offenses than for other types of offenses. There was a study done in 2019 about this by the U.S. Bureau of Statistics, and found that only 7.7% reoffended in the sexual area. And that means that 93% were rehabilitated. It's over a 9-year study. So that's the other thing I'd say is, kind of like Michelle was saying, it shouldn't be a star on us for the rest of our lives. There can be people can be redeemed. They can be forgiven, and they can change.
Yes, thank you, Mohammed. So I'm advocating for Eric Strang. He's a person who deserves to be released. He has served his time. He has served his time well, focused on volunteering, helping people, working as a mentor. He has spent his time on education. And I agree with Dave 100% that we have to be willing as a society to give people second chances. In Eric's case, he was 19 years old when he made his mistakes. And I'm a high school teacher. That was every day of every week. My teenagers were making goofy mistakes. If I hadn't given second chances, I couldn't have done a 30-year career as a high school teacher. We have to give second chances. And that's not only for teenagers. If you spend your time trying to be the best that you can be and rehabilitate and focus on education and your faith, why can't we give you a second chance? So I'm very much about that.
Thank you, Michelle. And let's come back to Dave and Dawn. If I can have some final thoughts from both of you.
Yeah, maybe I'll let my wife since she hasn't said much, do the concluding thoughts here.
Please go ahead, Dawn.
You're a smart man, Dave.
Well, I, like Michelle, just we're advocating for David. Just a very similar kind of a situation where, yes, they're in a similar state of being referred on to the Attorney General. Different cases, scenarios. David was guilty of an offense, but he has exhibited to us deep remorse for that. He has worked hard in the prison time he's put in now for 21 years of working hard at jobs there, keeping out of trouble, and looking forward to the day that he can be released. And it was a sad day and very disappointing for all of us when we thought, he completed his treatment program at Newton. We thought, great, he's almost there. He graduated from the class, just exemplary. They had no questions even for him. So needless to say, we were shocked, disappointed that now it looks like he may be in for another 13 plus years. That's what we're advocating, that this be looked at a lot sooner than pushing it off years before they're even considered for release rather than civil commitment.
Thank you, Dawn. And let's round it off with Dawn Peters and Susan Smeldon. So, Susan, final thoughts for our audience over here.
My final thoughts are, all of us were at a DOC board meeting in around October. A comment was made to us that the wheels of justice work very slowly. After I've been watching and living this, I disagree. They don't work slowly. It's filled with retaliation, nepotism. It's broken. Our system is corrupt. We need to fix it somehow.
Thank you, Susan. And Dawn, final thoughts from you?
Yeah, so I'm probably the odd duck here because I don't have anybody that I'm specifically advocating for. But I guess I look at it as I'm advocating for all of them, because I find the treatment over there, putting them in solitary, and just the conditions over there are just absolutely disgusting. I know, but as I stated before, I have several friends that work over there. I try not to get, too many questions to them so that they, don't want to tell me anything. I've had a brother-in-law that was committed at one time for, I think, 8 years for sexually abusing his stepdaughters. He served 8 years. Some of these that are serving 20 plus years, I don't even get it. And the system is corrupt. I mean, the whole Beth Skinner thing, the Attorney General, I'm looking at filing a complaint with against the Attorney General for her law license, because I think what she is doing is absolutely just not right. And I think somebody needs to look into a lot of things over there.
Thank you so much, Dawn, and thank you, Susan. Thank you, Dave, and Dawn, and Michelle. Thank you for coming on with us today, folks. Again, things need to change.
I want to bring one thing up myself really quick, and
Ken always has a habit of jumping in in the conversation. So Ken, go ahead.
No, I mean, basically, the biggest problem we have here is that politicians, this is the low-hanging fruit. This is what they can beat their chest about and say, hey, let's go against these bad people, as it were, without actually looking at what's going on. So the answer to this question is not just, let's beat up on the guys that can't have any power. It's to make these issues known. Okay, so the biggest thing is, let's find a compassionate legislature, and whoever that may be in Newton, Iowa, or in the surrounding area, that will listen to what has happened here, and can have a voice. Because if we can promote someone like that, that will help them politically, okay, make, because they're standing outside of the crowd, and then maybe we have a pathways forward to helping people like Dave and people like Eric, get what's deserved for them. Anyway.
Thank you, Ken. And folks, again, thank you for tuning in and thank you for listening to us. You are always welcome to bring up issues. That is what the Lightning Strike is about. It's, we like to say it's of the people, for the people, by the people. And on that thought, thank you very much again for joining us, folks. If you have any questions, concerns, feel free to talk to us. You can always call in to the radio station when we are there on Sunday mornings. The number to call in is 773-763-9278, or please go to our website, tlschicago.com, and send us a message. This is Mohammed Faheem with Ken DeLuc signing off, and best of luck, happy holidays, and Merry Christmas to everyone who's tuned in today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you for joining us on the Lightning Strike podcast. Don't forget to visit our website at tlschicago.com for bonus content, episode summaries, and more. Stay plugged in by subscribing on your favorite platform and never miss a bolt of brilliance. Your support means the world to us, and together, let's keep the sparks flying. Until next time, this is Mohammed Faheem and Ken DeLuc signing off. Stay charged and stay tuned.